I mean, how do you not? I was going to open... Honestly, you took me off guard. I was going to start with Inky and The Boon and sing the song. But we should absolutely start with Z Gangster instead. The classic, the iteration of Tiny Lister that everybody knows. Uncensored 96.
Yeah, this is sadly not the Friday episode or the Fifth Element episode.
No, yeah.
Nah.
Oh man, I forgot he was in the Fifth Element. That's right, he was the president.
Yeah. Or the Jackie Brown episode. He's in a lot of good movies.
Yeah. He is in a lot of good movies. He's in The Dark Knight.
That's right. Man, he knows how to kill it in like one scene.
You're right. Yeah. We should do a Tiny Lister arc.
Fuck it, hey, we got 4 movies already, and I love all of them.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Screen Sermon Podcast, everybody. I'm leaving that shit in. It's Inky and The Boon this week, and we're kind of wrapping up our mini Christmas series. I don't even want to call it an arc because it did kind of Venn diagram and crossover with the Sean Baker arc. But we just wanted to do a series of Christmas films since we were in the season. Unfortunately, Josh, whose nickname must not be mentioned, was supposed to be on this episode, chiefly because he's the one that fucking suggested it in the first place. But Josh is ill and is unable to make the episode this week, unfortunately. So get better soon, Josh. And in the meantime, we are going to talk about the 2010 Finnish. Am I getting that right? It's a Finnish movie, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Finnish horror action-y Christmas film, Rare Exports, A Christmas Tale.
Yes.
So
a mouthful of a film.
Yeah.
That's my sentence review.
That's on the back of the DVD.
Yes.
So this is written and directed by Jalmari Helander, and it stars. So this is also a disclaimer. So obviously, as always, this is going to be a spoilerific episode, as they all are. We will talk about plot points and things like that at our leisure. So if you haven't seen the source material and it's important to you to see it before you hear us talk about it, please go and watch the film. It is all over the place. I watched it on Tubi myself. Go Tubi. Fucking amazing streaming service that it is. So this is starring... but this is also going to be the podcast rife with me mispronouncing names. So, yeah, fair warning.
Same.
Yeah.
I feel like
not since
Bahubali have I probably mispronounced more names, so apologies in advance.
Bahubali was like a long fucking time ago. We've had a good run.
Yeah. Time
for us to fuck some names up now.
I'll say, speak for yourself. I barely speak English, so.
So it's starring Jorma Tammila and Ani Tammila. Probably got those wrong. Which are a father-son acting duo. They're actually father and son, and they play father and son in the film. And what is cool about that is that this film is based off of 2 short films that were released in 2003 and 2005, respectively, if I'm remembering correctly. And the same father and son duo starred in the first one. It actually might be 2005, 2007. That actually sounds more right to me. So this young boy was 5 years younger, playing effectively the same character, more or less. And his father was his father in the short, just like he is in the full-length film. How fucking cool is that? I thought that was really neat.
Yeah.
The short films in question are Rare Exports Inc. and Rare Exports... What the hell is it? It's like the...
Hang on, I got it right here.
The safety briefing or something like that.
Rare exports the official safety instructions, and the years were 03, 05, and then the feature was 07.
So it was 03, 05. Oh, the feature was 07. Why did I say 10? Is that just when it was released, I guess? Versus...
Oh, sorry, that's when they started developing it. But you're right, it was 2010. 2010 was the feature.
Got it. So yeah, 2003, this boy and his dad starred in a 7-minute short film, also, written and directed by Jalmari Helander, and his brother was also very much involved, I think, in the development of the idea in general. And then, fucking 6 years later, they're filming the full-length feature version of it, and then a year after that it gets released. Very cool. So here's where I veer off, though. This is an 82-minute film that feels like it's 2.5 hours.
Yep.
It's slow. It's slow as fuck, and it bores me at specific points, and it broke my heart a little bit.
Okay, I'm glad you said this, because my intro is that it's a film of two pieces for me. I was going to say two halves, then I realized that that's not completely true as far as minutes to runtime go. I think without credits, about an hour 10, maybe. Yeah. But for at least the first 40 minutes, I totally feel you. And there's a lot of things I should like going on. There's some nice story points that are kind of could build some suspense and tension. We know that something's coming. We know that this American excavation crew are after something not just legendary but also very dangerous. I mean, what a great setup right already. And then having the kids be the ones that know this in advance. Another nice choice, I thought. But up until the moment it turns for me, and I didn't expect to get into this early, but when the character of Piperen, I believe it's called, he's the guy that wears the sunglasses and he has the Santa outfit later on. Yeah, our helicopter pilot. When he's tempting an unconscious man with a cookie, that's around the time that it started turning for me. And there's two scenes with Piperen and cookies, and I love them both. I could watch that actor doing prop work with cookies for like 2 hours straight. And honestly, it probably would have felt faster to me than the first 40 or so minutes of this movie. Yeah.
I think tonally is where this movie... I think that's what makes this movie fall apart, because... The shorts, specifically the first one, I want to... No, both of them. The shorts are tense. They definitely sell you on the horror to a certain extent. But then there's the absurdity piece of it that makes it fucking funny. So, nobody's laughing in the short films. Nobody's laughing. They are presenting this as serious business. However, because the subject matter is so absurd, it's funny. It plays off as kind of funny. When you flip that and turn it into the full-length feature, for some reason, it's just not there. The humor is not there. Those small moments like you were talking about with Piperen and the gingerbread cookies and stuff like that, very small little instances of kind of catching some of that. But this film is so fucking bleak. And then when you get down to the brass tacks of what the subject matter is actually being presented to you, you're like, you can't make a serious movie about this. You can't. And they tried to, and it just doesn't tonally work for me anyway.
No. Well, my feeling was too, that early, not quite half. Excuse me. I was having a lot of trouble, and I'm like, there are a lot of things here. I kept checking in. I'm like, most of this should be working for me based on what I like about movies, based on what I like about storytelling. And I kept trying to okay, here we go. Gonna get there, and it just kind of wasn't. And it kind of wasn't. And and I wanted to call it a pace thing, maybe a pace issue, but I'm like, it's like I said, it's a relatively short film.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know how much faster you could have cut those scenes together. I think maybe it's just kind of a content thing, which I kind of hate using that word. And I don't mean it as much in the modern parlance, you know what I mean? As broad as that term's become. But like just the content of the scenes, like I needed a little bit more, you know?
Yeah.
And again, like a lot of good themes here, like the father-son relationship, the ultimate theme, like the kind of metaphor of the entire thing of like, you know, what's your antiquated culture worth to you versus what it takes to live, you know, in the here and now. Like I really like that theme, actually. I mean, it's not something I've had to deal with, particularly being a suburban American and all, but when it really sunk in and we get into that like late second and into the third act, I was in there. But yeah, just a lot of that early stuff, I was just like, boy, this just feels kind of empty.
Yes. And it just drags on, and you're just, and so, and I, maybe part of the problem was I did watch the short films, and I watched them first. And so in a way it was like, but I don't think it matters. I think if I had watched them after the fact, it would have been the same effect. Because the shorts are very effective. And it sets up this universe that you're immediately like, I need to know more about this. This is awesome. Just this whole concept of Father, they call him Father Christmas. They refer to him always as Father Christmas in the short film. So in the feature length, they turn it to Santa Claus. But Father Christmases are wild animals, basically. That's how they treat it. It's almost like a nature documentary, the first one, the Rare Exports Inc. And it's teams of hunters go out and hunt wild Father Christmases, and it's just like it's presented in the feature film. It's nude, older, bearded men running around in the wilderness in the snow and shit like that. And it's literally just they capture these Father Christmases, and then they have to train them. They have to put them through a training regiment to try to turn them into proper Santa Clauses, and then they ship them out to various countries around the world. That's all the little short is about. It sets it up so well. It's absurd and it's funny, but they also make the Father Christmases fucking horrific. Like, they introduce the concept of the rules, right? Like, you can't be naughty around a Father Christmas or they'll fucking kill you. And they present the whole, like, I'm laughing about it now. Like, I'm smiling just thinking about the short because of how well they do this. Like, they talk about how a Father Christmas basically has the strength to tear a bear apart and stuff like that. And they're talking about how, like, you know, you can't be loud, you can't be rude, you can't curse, you can't drink and smoke around a Father Christmas because that's what sets them off and stuff like that. And
I'm out.
Right. Yeah, we're dead. We are immediately dead. And like, it's just so effective, and they give you these protagonists that you're interested in, even though you don't know a lot about them. It's like a team of 3 hunters. They're not given tons of backstory. They're not given tons of... You don't know tons about them. It's just the marker, the tracker, and the sniper. So each of them has a job within this like hunting party. And it's so easy to just get invested in them. And like, they come upon an encampment where there's some dead bodies and stuff like that. And like, they search them, and like, the guy's got a cigarette in his mouth. So like, he was smoking when he got attacked. And of course, they go through the whole thing about they capture a Father Christmas and then they're training him. And it's fucking hilarious. Like, they got this bearded nude man sitting in a chair with the fake child doll thing, just like they do in the feature-length film. Yeah, it looks a little bit different, but it's the same thing. And he keeps biting the kid in the head. And then one of the 3 protagonists comes up and like slaps the shit out of him to get him back on track. And then at the end of the short, he's in the full Santa Claus outfit because he's graduated or whatever, and they're sticking him in a crate and like shipping him off somewhere. It was very good, and it just set up this universe that I was very interested in. Like, what just happened? And of course, like, the safety instructions goes into it more.
I'll say, hearing that, I have not seen the short films. They should have just started there. Like, use that as like the opening scene, like in media res.
Yeah.
Like, we already know that this is a place where you hunt Father Christmases or Santa Clauses, you know, and then move it forward from that. Like, let us wonder about this kind of like absurd concept, you know, and then develop it. That's a great little 80-minute like concept, I feel.
Sure.
Yeah, and like again,
it could have been like we already have this information, and now, yeah.
Yeah, you have the rules, you have the characters, you have the outcomes and the objectives, and then you can start swinging some of those different directions. You can almost do that where you start that hard and then you kind of cut back and you start to see say the kid, and you get into more his story and then you build back up towards the third.
Right.
I like that a lot better than honestly, the opening seemed, like I said, kind of strong for the feature.
Yeah.
Where they're digging in, he says, "Oh, this is greater than the discoveries of the pyramids or Tutankhamun or whatever he says." So we feel like there's something going to happen, and then it doesn't for so long, and part of it never does happen.
And you never, some of it never pays off.
I did like the idea that what we thought was the Santa Claus that they initially tried to sell to him was actually just one of the quote unquote elves.
Yeah.
And then the idea that the real Saint Nick, actually that's unfair because this is a little bit closer to the Germanic, I guess, Odin origin of Santa Claus than say the actual Saint Nicholas. I did a slight bit of research on that because I realized how little I knew about Saint Nicholas. Did not know he was Greek and Greek Orthodox at that.
Oh.
Yeah. So Santa, as we know him, has been a kind of sanitized version of him, Odin, and Sinterklaas, which I think is Swiss or Dutch. I can't remember now, but yeah.
Is he the one that left presents in the shoes? Like the kids leave their shoes outside?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, while we're on the topic, that was one thing. It sounds like such fertile ground, that kind of more Germanic or I guess Nordic, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Version of Santa Claus that kind of passed down from Odin or Woden. Or Flula Borg at one point said that German Christmas is kind of like Lord of the Rings if everyone was an asshole. It's mostly about punishment and fear.
That's a hell of a quote.
Yeah. He's full of those, by the way.
But that's what we come to kind of know. It sets up this universe that I am in. I'm instantly interested in what this is about and want to know more about it. And I'm excited to see a story that takes place within this universe. And then what you realize by the end is that this feature film is to set up the short films. It's a prequel to the short films.
Yeah.
And it's just not what you want after you watch the short films. And the best thing I can liken it to, and this is a very weird fucking comparison, when I saw the first John Wick film, and that universe that it sets up, the Continental and the sommelier and the gold coins that you pay the different services with, and it's all of the the underground assassins and stuff like that. They all know about these rules and the contacts and all that other stuff. I thought it was fascinating. They never told you too much about it. It was just shit that they would introduce and then leave it there because it's this is how you pay the cleanup crew to come in and get rid of the dead bodies in your house. You pay them with these gold coins. That's the first time they really introduce it, and then they don't explain it, they just do it. And it was perfect, and it was oh man, I would love to know more about it. But then of course now there's 4 movies and now this series on Peacock and all this other stuff, so I think it's now just overdone.
Yeah.
But this film kind of reminded me of that, where it's I want to know more about it, but without getting too deep into it. And then instead it gives me a prequel, and then we never even really get into the more about it stuff.
Well, and there is a way to dig into things with a prequel, but that's such an odd thing now that you say that. Again, not having seen the short films, but now hearing that we prequelize our short films. Yeah. That's weird. Really odd choice. I like that you brought up John Wick too, because that is a thing that I like with, say, more fantasy or just genre fiction. When you have those little things that kind of simplify but also inform the world, like you say, the way they pay in coins. It feels like a video game. That first John Wick movie, in some ways, carries a lot of weight in some ways that certain video games don't. But it has all those nice little exchanges, and it also has the actor that played Cedric from The Wire, and that always makes me happy. R.I.P. 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 Zeus Tiny Lister. I'm going to bring him up again.
Yep. The patron saint of Screen Sermon is Tiny Lister today.
Hell yes.
But yeah, I just... That's a good universe to kind of just use as an example. I mean, it's so... There's such this robust, like, life that it gives to the universe that they've built without having to tell me every detail about it and waste a bunch of screen time or waste a bunch of ink on a page. It's like, I don't need to know how this started. Like, I don't need to know who built the fucking Continental. All I need to know is that it's the hotel for hitmen and they're not allowed to kill each other there. That's all I need to know.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Like, some things are good to dig into. Like, when you go back with House of the Dragon's a good example, you know? I mean, a lot of people may disagree with me. I think the Silmarillion is a great back piece because it reads more like a mythology text.
Yes.
But yeah, sometimes Patton Oswalt had that great bit on one of his albums about the prequels of Star Wars. He's like, I don't necessarily need to know everything about where the things I love came from. I just want to like the things I like.
Yeah.
You know, some things are great as they are, and you just move them forward. Other things, there's something to dig in on.
I think it would have been so easy to make a feature-length version of the 2003 short film where you just kind of use the beginning of the film to present the universe that you've already kind of established, but, you know, you got to base it off of the idea that people haven't seen the short film. Yeah. So you introduce the universe, and then the film is about a particularly difficult hunt or something. Sure. And that would have been great.
Or you start with the adults, you think it's just a typical hunt. The one dude's a little too intense, and you realize it's because one of the Sinterklauses have his son.
There you go.
Also, here's observation on the movie itself. I don't know about the shorts or anything, but not a single woman, I don't think, in this whole movie.
Yeah, not one.
Where are the mothers?
Very good. Very good point.
And like, if the shorts didn't have any of that, that could have been a way to develop something. You know?
Yeah. Like, where do women fit in on this whole thing?
Yeah, anything to fill out that first 40 or so minutes. I said, I just need something. There's only about 2 kids, even, right?
Yeah, you've got. So he makes at least who you physically see in the film are just Pietri and what's his name, Juso. Yeah, and that's it. And it's like him, the main kid, and then the kind of bully kid that he hangs around with. He calls some of his classmates on the phone to see if they are available, basically, only to find out that they're all missing. But at the end, even when they're in potato sacks and stuff, you never physically see any other kids.
Yeah, that part is pretty funny, actually, because he's like, no, let's fly him over there. They're practically naked and in potato sacks. It's Nordic Finnish winter.
And that's what kills me is the shit starts hitting the fan. You're starting to get into these beats that you're actually looking forward to, and they do an effective job at certain points of presenting the Father Christmases or the Santa Clauses or the elves, however you want to refer to them, the Santa's helpers, as, you know, pretty creepy and foreboding presences and stuff like that. When they got the dude wrapped up and he's hanging from the ceiling by a chain and he's giving the kid looks and stuff like that, it was pretty legitimately creepy. Yeah. But yeah, the stuff that they do after that, and there's definitely a build towards seeing the giant Santa Claus monster, which is clearly a Krampus, you know, with the horns and all that kind of stuff, as we are, you know, made to realize throughout the film as he's reading the textbooks about old Santa Claus myths and stuff that, you know, Santa Claus, the Coca-Cola Santa Claus is a hoax, as he says, the real Santa Claus is mean. And you just know, we're going to see a giant Santa monster at the end of this. It's going to be awesome. And then you never fucking see it. It doesn't happen.
No, not at all. Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's like watching a Godzilla flick where, you know, he's coming and you keep hearing the dun 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 dun, and then oh shit, we already killed him when he was in the ocean. Never mind. We had a lot of Godzukis around, but that was it.
Yeah, fucking King Kong and Rodan and Mothra all dove on him and beat the shit out of him, but it all happened off screen. Sorry,
yeah, we also didn't see them.
Yep.
It's like
nobody
it's like
filmed any of this.
It's like if you remember the Golden PSP episode of South Park.
I'm familiar with that episode, but I don't remember what happens in it. I know I've seen it though.
Well, it's after Kenny dies, like for real. So he's in heaven, and he has to help the armies of heaven fight the armies of hell. And that's what this game was. So it's almost like a Last Starfighter kind of a plot. And so now he's
Surf
the best
Ninjas.
Oh, fuck! How did I forget Surf Ninjas? Thank you. So yeah, he has to fight the armies of hell with this video game, and the climax is just an angel looking over the side of the whatever you call that, the armament or the castle wall, and he's just going, oh no, now this is happening. Oh, now hell brought these things. And at one point he even says like, this is even more epic than the last battle of Lord of the Rings. And you don't see any of it. They just like cheaped out basically.
And I think it must have been a budget thing. Like,
I'm sure. I'm amazed they got as far as they did with this budget. Honestly, like I will say, like I like the way they handled the CGI with like those helicopter scenes. I'm like, this is obviously not very expensive. This is not like high level CG, but they found a way to use it effectively, which I'm always a big fan of.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the heavy CG stuff happens at night, so it's under the cover of night. It's involved with a lot of movement.
Yeah.
There's a lot of action going on oriented around the things that are computer generated, so it's not readily like apparent how bad it looks.
Yeah, no, it blends in almost like it's like those kind of impressionistic paintings in a way. And I give them a lot of credit for that, because there were much higher budget films from say 10 years before this that did not know how to do that. They were just like slap happy with whatever was available to them, and some of those are hard to look at now. Yeah.
And talking about the budget, this was made for a shade under 2 million euros. That's what that symbol is, right? Yes. All right, I had to double check myself. Sorry.
2 million kroners. So that's about a couple double cheeseburgers.
2 million loonies. It's Canadian money. And then it brought home a shade over 4 million in US. So I don't know anything about the exchange rate, but I know it made some of its money back. I know it didn't necessarily double it, but it made some of its money back.
Well, that's just in the US too. I mean, European intake may have made the money. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if actually this box office number is the gross worldwide. They're just exchanging it for us to what it means in US dollars. I'm not 100% sure. Especially because the budget was listed in euros, but then the box office is listed in US. So yeah, I don't know.
That's not confusing at all.
Not a bit. No, this is very easy to understand.
Look, we all know the exchange rate of 20 years ago.
Right. Oh, I didn't even think about like inflation and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what disappoints me most is I was really excited about the concept. And then when we get in there and we're actually watching the film, the stuff that's oriented around that concept is not paid off very well, if at all.
Well, yeah, it just takes too long to get to the meat of it. And like I said, I thought the opening was pretty good. Yeah. And even then, like there are some nice little setups in between there, but just like too much, just like very plain A to B scenes and just not much else happening. Like I hate to say it too, because this is a story I really should like, but like even just like the stuff between father and son, like boy, I didn't like Pietri's dad. Like he just he's an asshole, but I don't even hate him that much. Like he just seems like he's given up. Just giving up on life in general.
Very distant.
Yeah.
And you know he's grieving because something happened to the wife.
Yeah.
Like, that's definitely set up, and they mention it during a conversation and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just... He's just your, like, in general, kind of crotchety dad. But it's not so heinous that it, like, creates a dynamic there where it's like, oh, but he beats him. It's like, no, he doesn't. He doesn't... It's not that serious.
Yeah. Like Pithity doesn't even have that much to push back against. Like, it's more just like, fuck him. Like, he's that kind of like sad asshole at work you just kind of avoid, you know?
Yeah.
Even when you try to like be nice to him, he's kind of like, ugh, and you're like, okay, fuck you then. Like, I'll eat both cheese sandwiches, thank you. I brought an extra one, but fuck you.
Because you don't want them.
It was Munster too, funny. By the way. Sorry.
And like, evidently, like, I was reading some of the reviews and, you know, critical reception and stuff, and evidently, like, Cate Blanchett, this is one of her favorite movies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which it just blows me away. I'm like, where though? Like, where? And Roger Ebert, I'm gonna quote him on this one. He gave it 3.5 out of 4 stars, which again, I'm just like, I don't see it.
3.5. That's better than he gave The Fucking Thing, which he never
that's ridiculous.
Redeemed himself on. I'm sorry, I love Roger Ebert. I thought he was an amazing writer and critic, did a lot of things, and R.I.P. But he was wrong about John Carpenter's The Thing. I'm sorry, and this got better than that. Oh my god!
And 100%. And so, excellent segue. His quote for Rare Exports was, quote, "A rather brilliant lump of coal for your stocking," and considered it, quote, "an R-rated Santa Claus origin story crossed with The Thing."
Really?
Yeah, that's what he said.
He gave... Man, that's weird. I mean, you cover that many movies, who's to tell, but still. Referencing the one that you hated from 30 years before? 20 some years, yeah, anyways, yeah. That
this, being an R-rated film, it doesn't really earn it. Because most of the violence is off-screen. It's you know... There's the occasional thing, but it's not exactly blood-soaked. And I mean, the premise of it was supposed to be Santa Clauses are these wild animals. They're kind of like cryptids that will rip you apart, like rip you limb from limb. And that never really happens on screen. It's a lot of like, there's a guy on screen smoking, and then you pan over to like his supervisor, and when you pan back, the guy's gone, but his helmet is like spinning on the ground. It's a lot of that.
Effect. Yeah, I know that's kind of a cheap effect, but I did like that.
This is not blood soaked at all.
Like Pipity, when he's tempting him with the cookie and all that, like his ear gets bit off, but you don't see it happen. You just see that he's got like a wound.
Yes.
Like, if you took out... I can't even remember the language, but, like, honestly, if you took out the fucks and then you just covered up all the elf dicks later on, which are, like, 2 short scenes.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, if
I think the nudity is definitely where the R comes from.
That could only be it.
Yeah. Because I don't remember there being a lot of fucks in this.
Yeah, and the nudity is very brief, too.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say, like, if... Like, there's numerous PG-13 kind of like horror and suspense films I feel like verge closer to R, even though they don't necessarily have the language or sexual or violence content rather, just for the sheer like intensity, I would say, you know.
I mean, we covered it on this show, Indiana Jones.
Oh yeah.
Like,
when they melt
there's so much violence in there.
Yeah. Those first 2 are very fucked up.
Yeah. So
I think I want to say Temple of Doom was after PG-13 and Raiders was before.
I definitely think Raiders was before.
Yeah, it's one of those two. I think Spielberg pushed a lot, even though it wasn't his movie. It was the first PG-13 for like, you got to give us an in between here.
Yeah,
because like there's a lot of room between PG and R.
Yeah, and this just, like I said, it's unearned, and it's just tonally, this film it's all twisted up. Like it's taken so deadly serious. It's obviously some kind of there's some kind of message in here about consumerism, about how, Christmas has turned into this thing about making money, and it's all about money. There's a plot line through this about how Rauno, Jorma Tomila's character Rauno, and his friends are like reindeer, like they have like a reindeer hunting business company, and thanks to the elves getting loose, a bunch of their reindeer that they would be capturing from the area, the wild reindeer in the area, get killed unceremoniously, and so then they turn this whole idea about capturing the elves at the end, spoiler, like I said, the pen that they had built to keep the reindeer, end up holding over 100, almost 200 of the elves that they intend to train to be Santas. And they're doing all the math about, if each one is worth 85 grand, and then you add 22% value added tax and all this other stuff, and that's how the company Rare Exports starts. And so it's all about this consumerism thing. Christmas is about money. It's not about values. It's not about family anymore and all that kind of stuff. So, like, obviously the film has a message. I also read a little bit about how the film was made post-recession, so I guess recession in Finland. And so there was a lot of poverty going on in the country at the time, and this is definitely, you're getting an image of that. There's these, these motherless homes. It's just all these guys, and they're all out of work, or they're all scraping by, and they're just figuring out how to eat, basically, and take advantage of a situation, and so, like, this thing it's taken very seriously. The concept is wild and absurd. It's supposed to be kind of a horror film because of the danger related to the Santas that you never really get to pay off. There's this giant monster Krampus Santa who's supposed to be the original Santa, who you never get to see. You never get to see him, like, storming through a big wide open snowy field, like picking up dudes and eating them whole or something, which would have been cool, because, like, he was the size of an airplane hangar. He was huge. And then it's relatively humorless for the most part. There's a few moments here and there, but it's relatively humorless. But then it has this whimsical Christmassy soundtrack, which I think if they leaned more into the absurdity of it, and just kind of like fully accepted what it was, rather than trying to do this thing about, or like do the thing about the consumerism piece, but make it a little more subtle and not so like this is a movie about consumerism that happens to be about capturing wild Santa Clauses. Like, flip it and make it so that the consumerism part is underneath.
Yeah.
But yeah, it tonally just doesn't hit.
Well, yeah, and even the whole piece of them being reindeer hunters, and that playing right into that, like the kind of inverted consumerism of Christmas.
Right.
You can only really get that after you've seen the third act, Right. Which, speaking of, now that we mentioned, or you mentioned it, I feel like the reindeer death scene and then like the butcher shop scene with the pig, that possibly could have like tipped it to the R.
Yeah.
Which is weird. I mean, that feels like kind of an American thing. Like only an audience of people that only get their meat from Safeway would think that a butcher shop is an R-rated thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, like me, it's just like there's no tone to that early part. Like the story points are decent, and even some of the scenes, like on paper, are decent. And I like the design quite a bit. I like all the kind of older interior stuff, like the ovens and cabinets, and even the phone that Pietri uses to call his friends. That stuff all like I get a kick out of that. I like Pietri's his armor that he develops with his helmet, and he like ties like cardboard to his ass.
Yeah.
And even that scene itself, like when I was kind of refreshing myself on the plot of it bit reading about it earlier. That scene is kind of funny on its own, where he goes up to his dad, just dead face, like, "I need you to spank me."
Yeah,
like he's trying to get it done with now and repent before like the actual Santa Claus. To one of your points though earlier, I think the buildup of the Ultimo like giant Santa Claus, it is a little disappointing. But when I think about the alternative based on the budget, what I've really wanted to see, like, you know, a sci-fi original monster just like tear ass for a second, and then they shoot him with like, you know, an AR, not an AR. What am I thinking of? That would have done anything to him. RPG. Thank you. Yeah, wrong gun abbreviation. Thank you. RPG. They shoot him with Final Fantasy VII. No.
There you go.
Just whip discs at him.
There you go. Yeah, they fire Final Fantasy VII out of the junk jet from Fallout.
Well done.
And you're right. Yeah, you're right. But I guess it's just the fact that they tease this thing by showing you its pseudo form encased in ice, and you can see it has a face. Like, you see its eyes, and it has the giant Krampus horns coming out and shit, and you're like, oh god, we're gonna see this thing rampage like the fucking Spinosaurus or something. and then they just drill some holes in it, stick the dynamite in, and blow the motherfucker up. You never see it, and that's the end.
Well, they also take his horns off, which I may have missed something, but what was the purpose of that? I
don't know, other than like trophy hunting,
I guess. Yeah,
that's the only thing I got out of that. Like, it would have made so much more sense if it was like, no, like the horns are the beacon for like how the elves find Santa, because like, how the fuck did they find him in the first place? He was encased in ice inside of a mountain. So like, why are they roaming the wilds of Lapland? Like, why? I think that's the big thing. It's just, I keep questioning, like, why the fuck are they even there?
Yeah. Like, what's in these horns? Are there like medicinal purposes, or
right?
Are these responsible for why all the mothers are gone? Like, Jesus. What you bring up another thing too, and this is one. It's not an altogether bad. I guess I'll call it a trope. But the whole thing of like the way you beat the mob is to kind of kill the leader, you know, aka cut off the head of the snake.
Right.
It's not a terrible premise, but man, sometimes I just get tired of that. Like, I remember that in like the last Hobbit movie, the last Peter Jackson one, that is, where it's just like, yeah, they're just totally outnumbered, they're not going to win. But I'm like, it's not that kind of battle though either. When you read Tolkien, most of those battles, I mean, they're about a chapter long, you know?
Yeah.
You just hear about like how it went, and oh no, you lost this guy, and oh shit, then they came back, and oh shit, then this happened, and then this is how it turned out, you know? Yeah. And they're tending the wounded, and you're into the next chapter. So like, they always have to find this way of like, oh fuck. It feels like when you write yourself into a corner, you're like, yeah, shit, how do they actually beat them? Yeah. Oh, when you kill the queen, or the king, or the fucking whatever it is.
the commander, like
the Hive Lord, then the rest of them all just fall in line. Now you're the king, right? That's how it always works in the Animal Kingdom. I don't know. That trope just has got a little bit too well worn for me.
Yeah. And here's what I don't understand is the implications of it. So, and I know, like, I would be the first person to say, like, it's a movie. You just kind of have to go with it. Or, like, if you can't accept that, then you can't really go for the ride or whatever. But,
well, I hear you. Like, I bring that up as myself as well. But, like, that's also not an only thing. You know what I mean? Like, there's a high and low to that as well.
Yeah, and I feel like it's a cop-out because, okay, they captured, I think it's something like 198 elves that they are going to train to become Santa Clauses.
Yeah.
But then Rare Exports Inc., the short, takes place after they have established their business. So you're left to assume that the original 198 are already shipped off and paid for and all this other stuff. And now it's about them going out and hunting more. Where are they coming from? And if Santa is dead, why are they still there? And like, how are new ones being created? Are they born? Like, are they
just pop out of trees or something like that?
Right. So I'm really just confused about like where the
Where's
Father
Mrs.
Christmases
Claus?
come from. Yeah.
Is she like that? Is she like that big wood troll statue they built up here? And she just sits there at the top of a mountain shooting out elves? Is that why they kept the horns? That's why they keep bringing them in?
Oh my God. See, and now the Violent Night episode, we talked about what would be the perfect sequel to Violent Night, and that the working idea was that they wanted Charlize Theron to be Mrs. Claus to David Harbour's Santa.
Woo.
Which is great. I think that's great.
Yeah.
So now I'm getting images of fucking Charlize Theron with like the alien queen, like thorax thing coming off of her ass.
Yeah.
Just pooping out fucking elves. And like candy cane striped eggs.
Yeah. Charlize Theron could honestly pull that off.
Yeah.
She'd somehow make that the best part of the movie.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Until Sigourney Weaver showed up and burnt all our children, but you know.
Yep. There it is. Get away from her, you bitch. But she says it in Finnish.
Oh.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
That would be really cool.
A mouthful, but awesome.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it's like there's a huge, But it just, there's the implications of it just really messed with me, because now I'm like, well, how does this business even continue? Like, why do these things still exist? Where do they come from? If Santa's not around anymore, did he make them? Were they always there? Like, they were always these wild animals? They just happened to, for some reason, gravitate toward this being and want to help him? And you know, obviously they're never going to tell me these things. Of all the things about their universe that they're not going to tell me, they're definitely not going to tell me that. So I don't know. It just left me unsatisfied. And I think it was the slow build up to try to get to the stuff I was excited about, and then the payoff of the stuff that I was excited about. And then like the lack of any kind of meaningful feeling or information after it was over. I was just like, I felt like I got nothing out of that I was looking for.
I wonder if it doesn't ring a little bit better maybe with European audiences. Maybe this is like a little bit more like, you know, tied in with the folklore or some of the tales you're used to growing up with, maybe. Because maybe I don't know. I'm used to kids that are like a little bit more. We're gonna find the next clue, you know. Like they're very active, you know, or they have rings that join together and do something else. Right.
So I don't know. It just kind of it felt flat. And I mean, there's these moments in the short films that you're like, all they have to do is do that again, but with a little bit more money behind it, and it's gonna kill. It's gonna be so good. And I was looking forward to it so much. And then they never give it to you. Like in the safety instructions video, the last kind of the big set piece at the end. They're going through this escalation of just like, well, if you do this, if you break this rule, or if you break this rule, if you break this rule, and they're like testing this Santa Claus out, like his reactions. They let him out of the crate, and then it's like a minor infraction, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more. And the last one is literally the guy takes a big pull out of like a bottle of booze of some kind, and then throws it on the ground and curses in Finnish. And the fucking Santa Claus just explodes out of the top of this cargo box. And he's clearly like on wires, and he's like jumping in the air like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, like this giant pounce. It was so funny, and he looks dangerous, like he's gonna rip this dude apart and stuff like that. And they don't do anything like that in the movie.
Barely. Yeah, see, that's another great piece of that too that they could have really played with. Because you keep getting that from the opening. He says like, so no cursing, and he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? He's like, no. And you're like, oh damn. But like none of that really comes to light later. Yeah. Like again, Pietri, like it's like I said, it's a funny bit where he says he needs to be spanked for everything. He's trying to absolve himself, but like nothing else really gets punished. That's a great setup on its own. Yes. You know what I mean? If you just go through the village, you know, and every time it's very like domestic scenes, like things you would barely even bat an eye at. Like again, the guy says, you know, fuck or shit, or, you know, like he cracks a beer before like, you know, the sun's gone down. Right. And like suddenly gets snatched out like, or up the chimney or some shit. Like that's a pretty fun setup. Turns into like the Twilight Zone episode, you know, where like the kid who doesn't want anybody to be mean to him or do anything he doesn't like. A lot of good ideas, you You know,
yes,
a lot of fertile ground. I really want to watch these shorts now. Like your description,
yeah, you should.
Just your description alone had me like laughing and coming up with ideas of my own. So
yeah, definitely watch the shorts. I want to link the shorts in the video and just be like, honestly, if you want the best version of this, just watch these.
Yeah. Well, that's what it was to me. Like, it's not an easy thing. I was thinking about this just recently. I think I listened to something about like Wayne's World or something, or I was otherwise reminded of like SNL from our younger days in like the early 90s to like early 2000s. And I was like, man, what a job it is to like take something that's like a few minute sketch, you know, whether it's Wayne's World or like what became like Night at the Roxbury and all those things. Yeah. Like really
Superstar.
Tough gig. Yeah.
Ladies' Man.
Yeah. Like they did it with all of them back then.
Yeah.
And varying degrees of success.
Very much so.
Yeah. But it's like a really tough job to take something that's that small and blow it up into a full feature. And this one to me, it's like, I feel like they had all of their, metaphorical coins, their gold coins, to go by the John Wick standard, like in that last section. And that's what I mean. That's what it felt like to me. It was like they had an intro, they had a full length kind of sketch at the end, and then not a whole lot in the middle, Yeah. It's like an old Subway sandwich, you know what I mean? Where you're like, ooh, shit, I got some meat, I got some sauce. But then there's that part that's nothing but like white bread and lettuce.
Yeah.
And you're just like, fuck, I'm going to get to the pepperoni here soon. Don't worry.
It's either that or it's like they give you the meat and they give you all the fun toppings and the sauce, and then they just wrap it in the sandwich paper and don't put it on bread.
Ooh.
And they're like, here. And you're just scooping it out with a plastic fork.
Not a bad way to eat. I've been there. I've raided the fridge that way where I'm like, I don't have money for anything else, so I'm just going to get the fork and go to town.
Yeah.
What's that? Pickles and ketchup. Why not?
Sweet. At least I'm eating.
Yep.
I think the only other piece that I can really point out, and again, it's all, to me, it's like missed opportunity and a lot of disappointment. But like Pietri's character, somebody else's review, I can't remember who it was off the top of my head, but somebody else referred to him as essentially at the end of the film he turns into John McClane. And the whole film he's been kind of like a kind of a mousy, relatively quiet and understated kind of character. He's bullied by the other kid and all this other stuff. And then all of a sudden it's like he's got all these plans and he's jumping off of a helicopter and shit like that. It's like, what? Like, it just completely flipped that character around.
Well, it kind of happens with all the characters, honestly. Like, there isn't much of even a few scenes, say like late in the second act, where you see them kind of transition into that. It just kind of like, hey, wouldn't this be fun? And it is fun. But like, I'm like, I would rather if you just started with these characters this way. Yes.
And that's why, again, the short is so good, because the tracker, the marker, and the sniper are these three incredibly competent, like, seasoned Santa Claus hunters. And so you don't question, like, the badass things that they can do, because they're clearly highly trained and have been doing it for a long time and all this other stuff. But when you just turn it into, like, domestic dads, or like widowers, or divorcees, or whatever the reason is why there are no mothers in the film. Like, it loses its punch. And then, especially at the end, when you don't let them continue to just be domestic dads, like Pietri's dad, Rauno, is, this asshole and a hard man throughout the course of the film. And I feel like by the end, he's kind of a bitch.
I didn't find him that hard to begin with, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was like a like this compared to that kind of situation for me, where like he seemed very rough around the edges and like a gruff guy, and then by the end he's very much kind of like he's practically pissing his pants once Santa Claus starts biting brooms in half and shit like that.
Well, that was to me like I think, and I don't mind the actor so much, and like there's good room for that character in the story. I just think like ultimately the execution, I'm like, boy, this guy's just kind of like he's just kind of there.
Yeah.
You know, like he's not doing much. He's just very, he just inertia in a human form.
And I don't know if that's a performance thing or a script thing. Like, I don't know what caused that.
Who knows? Like, maybe that's just kind of the way they like to tell stories there, or I don't know. This is the first Finnish film I've ever seen.
That's true. I mean, that's the other piece. Yeah.
One of only a handful of Scandinavian films I've even seen. So
sure. Well, and it's worth saying that Jalmari Helander is still working. He just released Sisu last year, which is a gritty action killing Nazis movie, and it also stars Jorma Tomila. Wow. So he works with him again, and he plays the titular character of Sisu. And I've heard that movie is tons of fun, and I'd like to cover it at some point on the show. But whatever he's learned over the last 13 years, or I guess 12 years, before that film came out, he's clearly upped his game, because just from watching the trailers for Sisu, which I did last year, for the Coming Soon episode that we did, and I think Sisu was in our honorable mentions or something like that. I mean, he looks like he embodies that character pretty well of whatever he's supposed to be. He's like a former soldier of some kind, like a former Finnish soldier, and is set upon by Nazis and has to defend himself or something like that. But it looked really cool, and lots of violence and lots of fun effects and things like that were in the trailer. So it seemed like a fun action.
I don't know how much you know about it. Is this at all based on the Winter War in World War II?
It may have been, yeah.
That's a pretty fascinating story on its own. Go read that yourself if you haven't.
Okay.
Yeah. It's kind of a shorter piece. I mean, well, not obviously for the people that live there.
Sure.
But it's kind of like Belgium in World War I. It's like, it feels like a footnote to many, but when you really dig into it, it's actually a pretty amazing story.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess my overall review is just I was underwhelmed, and I thought that the whole thing was kind of presented and done better in the short films that were released, 5 and 7 years prior to the release of the full-length feature film. And I found that to be quite disappointing, and I was really kind of hyped up for this one and was excited to end the kind of Christmas series with this, because I thought it was going to be this fun action horror Christmas movie, and that's not really what I got. It wasn't a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back to my food metaphor of if this was the sandwich, the burrito, the whatever else, it was like the first not quite half was like, oh man, I don't even know if I want to finish this. I don't know if I want to eat this. And then the back half was just like fireworks,
Yeah,
that's where all the good meat, the pepperoncinis, the pickles, the spicy mayo, it had everything. I really enjoyed that third act. I mean, that's where I started to feel like the actual character of it. And to your point again, I'm like, man, if we had just started here, this would have been amazing. Yeah. And altogether, it wasn't bad for me. It was just like, if I ever watch this again, I'll be honest, I might just start it from the point where I know I liked it, which I don't usually do with movies, but hell, why not just get to what I'm after?
Yeah.
Time is short.
Definitely. With that in mind, I mean, I feel like we've wrapped it up pretty neatly in a bow, no pun intended, toward the Christmas season. How about you? What do you think, Inky?
Yeah, that's about everything I had to say. Before we go out, I mean, there any, since this will be our last episode before the holiday, any offhand Christmas movie recommendations you'd throw out there?
I definitely would always point to The Ref if anybody has missed out on that Dennis Leary. And but you know what? It might be problematic for some folks because Kevin Spacey is in that, and I know that
that ruins one of mine too. So
yeah, but I loved The Ref. I thought it was hilarious. Dennis
that's what
Leary.
You start with.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think of what are some Christmas movies that people may not have seen.
Yeah.
So that's one that comes to mind is I don't know tons of people outside of my circle that knows what the hell The Ref even is, but it's a great little film, and it's hilarious. So I would definitely point to that as a Christmas movie that's worth checking out.
Our off again, on again co-host Mick will love that.
Yeah. What about you?
I mean, my classics, they're not too surprising. Like the usual two are the Muppet Christmas Carol, Muppet Christmas Carol, not Caracle.
Mm-hmm.
Caracle isn't a word. And Scrooged, which are, of course, both. Yeah. There's so many ways you can take that fucking story, and I love both of those. Like, you can do it with puppets, you can do it very dark. I mean, that's some of the best. Bill Murray, when he steals a cab from an old lady. Not evil enough. When she looks back and he's looking out the window, he flips her off.
Scrooge is a classic.
I want to thank Rob and Brandy, especially for reintroducing me to that one a few years back. Those offhand ones, I always mention them, though, like the Shane Black ones. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, The Nice Guys, the original Lethal Weapon, Long Kiss Goodnight. All good.
Love the Long Kiss Goodnight. I forgot that was a Christmas movie, too.
Yep. Yeah, he's obsessed with Christmas. I mean, those are mine. That's kind of the best picks I have. Honestly, you can't go wrong with It's a Wonderful Life. I know it's kind of cheesy to some people, but I still kind of dig it. I'm a Jimmy Stewart fan. What can I say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think that, now that we did this, and it was a lot of fun, I enjoyed kind of doing this little aside, just to kind of break the arc up and things like that. So I think moving forward, every December, we'll throw 3 or 4 Christmas movies onto the calendar, make sure one of them's a foreign language one, make sure one of them's kind of an offbeat one, do a classic, that kind of thing. I think it just makes for interesting stuff that we can talk about every December. So I feel like this worked out, and we should just keep doing it.
Yeah, if any listeners out there have some suggestions for next year, maybe some out-of-the-way ones we haven't heard of, by all means, throw them out there.
Oh, yes, 100%. Please comment in the video below on what Christmas movies we should review next year. And you could also send those to screensermonpod@gmail.com.
Where else can they find us, Boone?
They can also find us on X. We are at Screen Sermon. We also have a Facebook. You can find us there we're at Screen Sermon, or you can search Screen Sermon on Facebook. And then obviously you can find the content here on YouTube or Spotify, depending on where you're listening to it currently. But yeah, screensermonpod@gmail.com. I think that's either that or commenting on the YouTube video is probably the best way to get a hold of us. And yeah, we want your suggestions, your feedback. What movies should we review? Speaking specifically about these Christmas flicks, what should we put on the calendar for next year? I know it's early, but hell, if we do it now, it would be great to kind of have those ready to go and know what we're going to do. So we would love to get some suggestions from folks, especially around the foreign language thing. I would love other people's suggestions about foreign language Christmas movies that we should check out. I know that not all cultures celebrate Christmas, so that's not always going to be the easiest thing to find.
Dude, if there's any great Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, any kind of holiday films around this time of year, hell, if there's any even just good movies about the pagan holidays that came before this, I'm down.
I'd love it. Yeah, I mean, we should say holiday movies, not Christmas. I know that's not really appropriate. So, yeah, exactly what Inky said.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I just wanted to wish everybody out there, all our listeners, contributors, and anybody else that happens to hear my voice, a very happy holiday. Or if you don't like the holidays or don't celebrate, just a happy, hopefully, couple of extra days off.
There you go. And a happy holidays and extra day off to you, Sir Inky, and to Josh as well. And again, hopefully he feels better soon and it doesn't encroach on his holiday season too awfully much.
Feel better, Josh. Watch Uncensored 96.
There you go. All right, folks, for the Screen Sermon Podcast, we'll chat with you next week. Thanks a bunch for listening.